This is perhaps less fantastic, but still, I hope it will be interesting. And somebody used the term in pluribus unum yesterday. I think we might for EU annual conferences like these, and I'm at my 5th now. I think we might use the term gens una sumus. We are a big family. This is the term of the World Chess Federation. This can be used also to the Baltic Sea crowd. I think there are really lots of familiar faces here, and I think this is a great event. It's an event which improves coordination and coherence in the Baltic Sea region. I say that as a CBSS representative. I firmly believe this is so. This is where we all meet each other, we understand each other, we learn about each other, and that's the basis for all coordination. So this is an event which exceeds the importance of the EU Baltic Sea strategy. I think there should be more non-EU member participants here. There are a number. I'm looking at one right now, and that is very good. That is very good that they are indeed welcome. So now I will shortly take you through my PowerPoints, and then I will add a few reflections on the funding the future. I mean, that's the theme of this seminar, and I promised Mikael to try not to be as boring as usual, but to speak freely. So let's see that. But first, I'll be boring. This is then the idea. We wanted to support seed funding for regional cooperation. We wanted to be not more bureaucratic than others, preferably less bureaucratic. Still, we do not want to be sloppy with money. This is taxpayers' money. It's not our money. It's the money of the citizens of the Baltic Sea region. And but still, we hope we have developed an instrument which is a good complement to what the EB Schleswig-Holstein and others are offering. And it carries a few restrictions, of course, but still it's a fairly flexible instrument. So the idea is co-financing or seed funding. I mean, the maximum. We have 1 million euros, but the maximum amount, and I will come to that, is 50,000 euros. These are the priorities within which you may apply for funding, and they are wide-ranging, for sure. These are five long-term priorities. Actually, I think most things which we cooperate regionally on can be fit into these priorities with some creativity. So it's not a major restriction, I would argue, in terms of applying for funding. We want to have added visibility for macro-regional cooperation. We would like to have transnational impact. We want to bring coherence. We want to have sustainability. We want to have good communication of results. We want to have an outcome which has a potential to build on, we want at least 3. I mean, 1 is national, 2 is bilateral, 3 is regional in our world. It should be more, preferably, and there's of course competition. So the more partners you have in a project, the more it may, the higher chances it may qualify for funding ultimately. And it should be legal body. It's at least there has to be a lead beneficiary, which has to be a legal person, and this is also important. Private persons may not apply. We are fairly flexible on co-funding, as you can see. It's funding in kind is accepted. Maximum amount is 50,000, and astonishingly, most seem to apply for 50,000. Why is that? We haven't really figured that out, but I guess it was to be expected. There are those who apply for less, though. I should say that. This means we are looking at well, maybe slightly more than 20 projects as a consequence of this fund. This during these 3-year periods. So, and that's sort of it. That should be kept in mind, maybe. I don't think I'll go through this, so I'm sorry. But you will find it on the homepage. And it's a fair process. I can say that the next call will probably be during the first quarter of 2014. We haven't formally decided that yet. But so far we've funded projects to the amount of 200,000 euros roughly. We are about to make decisions on perhaps another 200,000, which means that by mid-2014 we will probably have disbursed more or less half of the fund, which is true to, this is roughly how it should be. We are on track, to put it that way. This is a 3-year fund, and it was launched in connection with the ministerial in Kaliningrad last summer. So this is how it looks right now. This means there is certainly a possibility of applying and getting funding. It's not easy. It's never easy. We have 16. Well, we have less than 20 applications in pipeline right now for the decisions in December, and we of course expect more applications for the next call during the first quarter next year. So that's how it looks, and that's not perhaps unusual in terms of compared to what the EIB Schleswig-Holstein is experiencing in terms of interest and so on. It also says something about, but it's an interesting figure because you may discuss it in terms of, are we communicating it well enough? This is a region of 85 million people. Should we really only have 20 applications done? Maybe regional cooperation is that tricky and that rare and that exotic, or maybe we should do things differently. That's a question worth asking and discussing. Well, first of all, I think talking generally on the Interreg funding, I compare to my experience, my slightly traumatic experiences as a TASIS manager in Moscow in 1998. I remember having to put liens on furniture and stuff to get funding because there were cash flow problems with the EU funding. But it's much better now. I must say. I must say there's been lessons learned by the funding authorities, and I think what I see when we do EU projects generally is that it's a known process. There can still be delays, and it's lots of paper and so on, but it works somehow, and we all know how to do it. So there's been learning on both sides, and that's a fairly positive thing. I think we should be honest about that. Still, I would like to take this chance, and I would like to say, at this point, when the money is gone and there is not yet new money, if we're talking Interreg and that kind of regional funding from the EU, I think we should try to stop the myopia which this is increasing. The fact that we have all learned to live with EU funding doesn't mean that there is no money nowhere else. I'm stating the obvious, perhaps, but we should really try to be more creative as to finding financing solutions, and this I think this period is perfect for that, because we simply have to. We simply have to, and the seed money tools which have just been presented are only part of this new world. They are a positive contribution, I think, to trying to be creative, and at least our money is not fixed to further EU funding as an implicit assumption. On the contrary, the idea is that it will sow the seeds of future funding. But we are certainly trying to find money elsewhere. Let me start with one at the sort of highest level, the national level. One thing which you could do, or we could do, because we are doing it too, is to argue in front of your administrations, national administrations, that what has hitherto been considered a national financing or a national budget item for a certain kind of cooperation should be considered regional, Baltic Sea. Actually, the Swedish government should be commended for trying that very approach. I mean, the Prime Minister's office, the Swedish government tells its state agencies that they may consider national funding for regional cooperation. This is, of course, up to the national authority. The government cannot actually force the national authorities to do that, but they can convince the national authorities to do that. And sometimes I believe it may happen. If we're discussing interoperability, for instance, which is very frequent in the civil security field, then we would certainly you can save money as a national authority by applying interoperability long term, and maybe we can share resources in the region. I mean, that's an obvious conclusion in civil security. Then there is alternative funding sources in cooperation with foundations and trusts, for instance. We are talking to foundations more and more. I recently employed a senior advisor who's a foundation expert, and we had a meeting at Bosch Stiftung in Berlin last Friday, for instance, talking about possible cooperation in the future. They immediately liked what we are doing with the Swedish Institute already in terms of Baltic Lab, and they say that maybe we can do things together in the future. So talk to foundations. Every foundation has its restrictions, of course, but I think one may work more in that direction. And then finally, it's it's the internet, and I think we are far away from using the opportunity the internet works. For crowdfunding, I mean, crowdfunding should be addressed, and we should try crowdfunding. And that can be done through internet fairly neatly. There are plenty of tools out there. One which I like is called Brickstart. It's a Finnish-funded idea for crowdfunding, and we will, I think, try to use that kind of ideas. Look at what the World Wildlife Fund does in Sweden, for instance. I have granted the right for them to take 100 Swedish crowns from my bank account every month, and it's used for improving environment in the Baltic Sea region. And I trust them. That's the point. I mean, there are organizations out there which we trust, and the Baltic Stern study has shown that people are ready to pay for improving the Baltic Sea region environment. There is even a figure, I think. I don't recall the exact figure, but that figure says something about how much potentially 85 million people, at least, can be prepared to pay for regional cooperation to the benefit of sustainable development in the Baltic region. That should be kept in mind, and I think that's where we may revolutionize funding for regional cooperation. And the World Wildlife Fund is a good example. They have you call it faddersystem in Swedish. What's fadder in English? Pater? Sorry? Yeah, a friend of the Baltic Sea system, sort of. And it's fairly interesting, a fairly interesting model. You even get a small seal, a small white seal, which you can put on your desktop to show others you care. That's it. Thank you.